Witchhunter is a versatile class that can be played with a wide range of roleplay characteristics and motivations. I've always liked the concept of a torn and hypocritical character who uses the dark arts to defeat those who use the dark arts, and ends up either becoming what they hate or hating themselves. Combat is fast and furious with a lot going on. Since the Witchhunter doesn't wear armor or use alteration spells for protection, they must use conjured minions as distractions while peppering their enemies with arrows. As a last line of defense, I placed fire runes between myself and any enemy NPCs. The Witchhunter was held captive by a powerful warlock who used her for his own pleasure and in countless experiments. She witnessed unimaginable horrors as other captives were tortured and killed in various brutal ways and raised back to life, only to be tormented anew, all in the supposed name of research. She often wondered why he didn't kill her, or whether this hell would ever end. Eventually, she realized that the only way she would ever be free was to use the same tools to defeat him. So, she began watching and listening carefully to his every incantation, and when he left the lair on one of his excursions, she would experiment and practice her own terrible magics. One day it all came to fruition, and she watched, in equal parts disgust and delight, as her Atranax ripped the warlock limb from limb. Now it was time to ensure that nothing like this ever happened to anyone else in the land. Naturally, I had no choice but to use the Demon Hunter armor mod for this build. I also wore a ring of Peerless Conjuration and carried an enhanced crossbow as backup for my bound bow. Now let's take a look at the perks that I've chosen for the Witchhunter. So let's start with Conjuration, since it's one of the key skills in the Witchhunter's arsenal. From Mastery 2 out of 2, I went up the Atranax side of the tree with Plane Meld, so that my Daedra I was able to conjure them 5 times further away. Atromancy, so that they last 3 times longer. Elemental Potency, so that they're stronger and higher level. Daedra's Dew, which once again, as usual with these builds, I didn't do anything with, but used to get to March of Oblivion, which, with my base magic of 250 points, allowed me to have 3 Atranax at a time. Now, on the side of the Conjuration tree that deals with bound weapons, their Ordinator has made a lot of interesting perks that are obviously targeting the Witchhunter concept. So first of all, Mystic Binding to make my bound bow more powerful. Soul Raider, which allows me to trap souls with my bow. And after trapping 250 souls, all bound weapon perks last twice as long. Now, I didn't end up trapping souls with this particular build, but that is a really interesting use of that perk. Next we have Rend from this world, so that bound weapons will banish conjured Daedra, turn reanimated undead, and deal 100 extra damage to non-conjured Daedra. Void Burn. Bound weapons brand victims with unholy energy for 5 seconds, halting magicka and stamina regeneration while draining 15 points per second. When both are depleted, the energy starts devouring their flesh. I noticed this caused basically a bleed damage that killed quite a few enemies in my playthrough. Hallowed Binding causes your bound weapons to rend both flesh and spirit, reducing magic resistance by 30% for 5 seconds. Covenant of Cold Harbor increases the magic resistance reduction by another 30% if you have a conjured Daedra under your control. And finally, Dark Whispers. Bound weapons induce a battle rage in their wielder, granting 20% extra attack damage and 100 points of armor rating for 5 seconds when a target is struck. That gave me some armor when normally a Witchhunter would have none. And next, let's take a look at Destruction, which I went pretty heavily in as well. I went mainly up the fire side of the tree. I also took some perks for making my runes more powerful. So starting with Mastery, 2 out of 2, let's head up to the right. We grabbed Rune Caster so that I can cast runes 75 feet further away and place up to 3 times as many at a time. And Ancient Seals. Destruction runes no longer deal instant damage, but inflict a stacking 10-second elemental burn that deals 20% damage per second. That I found maybe a little less than useful, because generally I was using the runes as sort of a last defense. If somebody got close to me, they'd get hit from the fire damage. And so the stacking damage that burned over time wasn't maybe as useful as instant damage, but I still made use of it, and it was worthwhile. Then I went up Force of Nature, so that my fire spells do more damage in sunlight, and Elemental Specialization, which of course I chose Fire, to do 15% more damage with that. Speaking of fire, I took Combustion 2 out of 2, so that fire spells are up to 50% more powerful based on the missing health of your enemy. Scarring Burns to reduce fire resistance, so this is good when someone is hit by a fire rune, and then you still have your fire Atronax casting fire spells at them, so they become weaker to the fire. Conflagration. Fire spells ignite the ground underneath their targets for 30 seconds. The burning ground deals 8 points of damage per second for 3 seconds on contact. Flash Fire. Fire spells have 15% chance to ignite the target for 2 seconds. The next instance of fire damage that hits an ignited target, except for burning ground, detonates, dealing 125% more damage and causing a living target to flee the flames for 4 seconds. And finally, Scorched Earth. Fire spells, with the exception of concentration spells, burn corpses to cinders, creating a pyre that burns for 30 seconds. Next up, we've got Archery, which of course is one of the key damage dealing skills for the Witchhunter. So I took Archery, obviously Mastery 2 out of 2. I grabbed Wing Strike 1 out of 2. I should have really taken the second perk in this, but I ran out of points and forgot to take it. So this allows, when you bash a target, you do 20% more damage with your bound bow, or with any bow or crossbow for 10 seconds afterwards. So if they get too close, bash them, then shooting them does more damage. I also took Steady Hand 2 out of 3 to slow time down by 25%. Crippling Shot, so that enemies that are within 25 feet get slowed by my shots, and that effect stacks. Pinning Shot, which causes targets to stagger within 50 feet. Another thing, this is, you just basically want to keep your enemies away from you, because you are pretty weak. I mean, I put a lot of points into health, but, you know, without without good quality armor or alteration flesh spells, you are pretty squishy. Next we have Clean Kill, which increases the damage that bows deal to people with full health. Ranger, allowing me to move at full speed with my bow drawn. Quick Shot, which increases the speed of the bow by 30%. And finally, Hailstorm, attack 8% faster with bows and crossbows for 10 seconds after shooting a fully drawn bow. And this effect stacks. For lockpicking, I just grabbed Mastery 2 out of 2, and that was it. I didn't really find the need to do too much more in that area. Same thing with Alchemy. I just grabbed Mastery 2 out of 2, and that gave me some nice health potions and Marksman Fortify potion as well.
That it? That your best?